Welcome to Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness with your hosts Chris Noble and Bill Perotzman. In today's episode, we're talking about music and affirmations. It's a difficult topic because the definition of spiritual or metaphysical words, such as affirmation, is fungible. But we're fun guys, so we offer our individual ideas about what makes an affirmation, and then review the basics of how and why affirmations work, both with and without music. We discuss why it's important to identify affirmations that might be holding us back, what makes affirmations powerful, and how to engage music to amplify them. Along the way, we visit the spiritual sounds of Sanskrit, the silent community of prayer, ecstatic or psychedelic trance, and call and response singing. It's a diverse, evidence-based short course in how to align with what you want and how to connect music with that. We'll be talking about all that and much, much more, as always, in these open conversations here on Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness. So, get this. I don't know why this topic came up, but I'm walking through the art walk this weekend in San Diego. There's 300 artists in all these booths. And on the street where we're set up, my wife's an artist, there's a Catholic church. And I was walking to pick up lunch or something. So I walked by the front of the Catholic church, and they're at that point in the Mass where everybody repeats, I believe, and everybody's repeating that together. Mm-hmm. And they did that, and then some music kicked in. And I was thinking to myself, how cool is it to be with a group of people and do those affirmations together? And just like as a group, finally back in the room, right? To be able to say, yes, I believe, or whatever it is. I know you're not supposed to say, I am this, but, you are beautiful, you are free, you are powerful, all that kind of stuff that we do. And it just reminded me for a minute of like the monks praying for water, whatever it is, the power of human intention sort of magnified, coming together with other people. And it stuck, Chris, and I thought, hey, let's talk about that, because music and affirmations are a wonderful thing. Whether you sing praise, hymns, or, whatever the thing is, or chant the Om. But, talking about music and affirmations just seemed like a more powerful way forward than sort of rehashing some of the old technical stuff, Now we get into the heart with affirmations. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, it's so powerful. I'm definitely what you experienced the other day is something so powerful when a group of people get together and sing the same things. Even without affirmations, I think most of us can relate to having at one point in our lives gone to a concert and sung the songs of your favorite band.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Artist. And like you're just singing, and maybe it's a love song, so the lyrics are a little bit more uplifting, right? And you're singing, well, I love you, or whatever, singing all these beautiful lyrics, and you got thousands of other people singing along with you. I don't think anyone can leave a situation like that and not say that was a euphoric, like almost religious, heavenly, out-of-body experience, because it's so empowering, it's so incredible. And I mean, you have to pretty much be a robot to not feel something from that. And I guarantee you, anyone listening to this has some point in their life experienced something, remotely close to that. So we know that it has power, but then when you can get really intentional with those words, that's when the power can just really expand even more, right?
Right.
And we can get into later like the difference between an I am healthy affirmation versus a you are healthy affirmation as an example, the power of the intention behind the affirmation, the words themselves, all that kind of stuff. There's so much to affirmations. And for those listening too, it's like you don't have to use the word affirmations. You can use empowering lyrics,
Yeah.
It's like words that have deep impact, essentially.
Yeah, something more than reading the news, right?
Yes.
And maybe that's a great place to start, because affirmations tend to be sort of the new agey, modern spiritual way of saying what we used to call prayer.
Right.
And I know Christians out there that do what's called contemplative prayer, which is a little bit like blending Christian prayer and meditation. Mm. And so there's like all these sort of words to talk about what we're calling affirmations right now. But, just for everybody listening, and I'll have to think about what my own definition is, but what's your definition of affirmation, Chris? I mean, in this context, in this sort of more healing, consciousness transforming context?
It's a great question because we all have a different bit of a different one. And so for me, kind of like going back to what I was saying, like I feel affirmations are empowering words or lyrics
Hmm.
that are spoken or sung. I typically think of an affirmation as something sung, but it's spoken to. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be melodic, and it's spoken to somebody or to yourself to basically program an idea and a concept into your consciousness. The reason why we repeat affirmations many, 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 many times, and goes back to ancient prayers from even like ancient Indian culture, like the Sanskrit prayers that you would be reading and that people still read
Yes.
to this day and recite in different temples and different ceremonies. I mean, these things have lasted thousands of years, and once again, like things like meditation, yoga, etc. There's a reason these things have lasted thousands of years. It's not just because they're nice. It's because they
So
carry.
is like a mantra an affirmation?
Well, yeah. I mean, from my experience, yeah, mantra really is, in a sense, an affirmation. Sometimes mantras are used to you say them without even knowing what they mean. I mean, if
Right,
you're
right.
singing an ancient Sanskrit mantra, I don't know what it means, but I was taught a mantra in meditation when I was being trained in transcendental meditation. So I would say this affirmation only in my mind while I was in meditation to basically program my mind to know, kind of like the Pavlov's dogs, like cognitive response whole theory, where it's like you associate that sound and word with a very particular thing. For me, it was meditation. So every time I would say that mantra, my brain was trained to be like, oh, we're in deep meditation now. And it would just settle you in that much faster. So mantras kind of are affirmations. I guess they're also kind of sounds that you can use to program different things. But I guess to really, this is a very long definition, but the definition is essentially you're using words to reprogram your mind and to reprogram your consciousness.
To live wire your mind into the space that your words are carrying you, essentially,
Basically,
right?
I am healthy. Well, obviously, you're trying to reprogram your consciousness towards your health, right?
Hmm.
Etc. Just
So
name
they're
it.
directional. They're not just, we believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost kind of, that's an affirmation too. But it sounds like the direction that you're taking them is saying it's like, it's sort of like an ask, isn't it? Or a call to
Yeah,
action. I
kind
am
of like a call to
healthy,
action.
right?
Yeah.
You are healthy. There's a there's a positive movement there toward health. And maybe you're healthy already. So maybe you're going from health to super healthy. Who knows? But I feel like in your definition, there's a pull towards something,
Yeah, I think
you
you're
know?
right. I mean, like I'm kind of trying to think of this right now on the spot too as we're doing this, but it's true. It's like there's a desire to reprogram something. So if I have a mental block or an emotional big trauma towards something, let's say a financial block, financial struggle that we have deep, deep trauma attached to, well, then an affirmation that might work might be like, I am like just again the I am abundant and I am
Yeah.
wealthy, or taking out the I am, and once again we can get into that later because if you don't believe in it, then saying I am isn't as effective. But let's just even using the words like wealth, 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 or saying something like that over and over, it's gonna reprogram your brain to associate this idea of like you're basically trying to take something that's had a huge trauma and blockage and reprogram it to
Yeah.
not have a
And
huge trauma and blockage. So it's directional. But
just directional.
but what do you think, like, yeah, because I know
Well,
we also
I'm
have, because for those listening too, it's like I was raised like basically scientific and not religious whatsoever. So prayer and affirmations, like my definition is so different. It's like a modern materialism, science-based definition. So I'd love to hear your take on it.
so, but I have to ask you another question because in the science-based world, when we want to observe something, often our want to observe it changes the observation itself,
Yeah, quantum mechanics.
right? So, and that's a very powerful part of affirmation. So, affirmations are not purely objective in that sense.
No, and that's why I am versus you are or something. So, for those listening, like there's a study that was done not too long ago to show that if you're not sure about something, so once again, if you've got deep trauma over a financial blockage or money is
Yeah.
basically.
War, pick anything. I mean,
Pick a thing. I
whatever
mean, your
trauma,
your health, love, relationships, whatever, right?
car
If you've got
accident, anything.
anything, if you've got deep trauma that you're trying to work on, and you genuinely just don't believe that, because look, with all of our deepest traumas, they're pretty tough to like, oh, just believe that you can be wealthy. Yeah, okay, sure, I'll just work against the however many decades I've been alive of all the programming that's told me the opposite, that's deep in my subconscious. Like, I'm not going to believe that, even if I'm
Not very
saying,
skillful. No.
no, I am wealthy. I am wealthy. Okay, great. But like, I don't believe that. So if you don't believe that, then it isn't nearly as powerful. So that's why you can just, if you're saying something like that, you can just take out the I am altogether and just say the word wealthy, wealthy, wealthy. There's not as much of a attachment anymore to that. And then if you can do one better, you can go on YouTube and type in like wealth affirmations, and then they'll likely be saying like, you are wealthy. You can literally type in the words you are wealthy into any of these online little things, and they'll just repeat like in a robot voice the same voice over and over to you. But if you have another person telling you an affirmation like you are wealthy, you're going to believe that more coming from another external source than you will from your own self, because if it's something so deeply traumatic, you got a lot more work to do, so you're not going to necessarily believe that right off the bat. So
Yeah.
going back to what you're saying with the quantum mechanics and the observer, and the the mere fact that like we're trying to reprogram something, it's really dependent on where you're at, on that journey. So if you don't believe you can reprogram something, you're going to want to shift your affirmation to something less personal, so it can maybe break down your defenses a little easier. I don't know if that made
No,
some
it totally makes
sense.
sense. I'm with you on this. And I appreciate you taking the time to expand it out, because, words like authenticity and affirmation are sort of, they have so many aspects to them anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And an affirmation could be entirely metaphysical, which would be hard to prove, or it could be entirely, grounded in earth, like the earth supports me as I stand here on the earth with gravity, at work. Also an affirmation, which could be very important for somebody who is having trouble standing.
True.
Yeah. So that affirmation could be entirely appropriate for a person who's at that place. So I agree with everything you said. And I want to add this. They are self-evident. So, and this is a tough one. So if you're listening to this, there's a lot of ways you can measure self-evident. Obviously, if I'm standing on the earth and it's my first time standing after an accident or something, am I ever happy? You bet I'm happy, right? Yeah. So my affirmation is the earth supports me in that scenario is phenomenal and self-evident, because there I am standing, at last, after months of physical therapy or whatever it is. The metaphysical ones are kind of tough though, right? So I was thinking of, as we were talking about mantras, I was thinking Om, Om.
Creation.
Om Mane Padme Hum. I've got it. Yes, Om Mane Padme Hum, right?
Yeah.
And all of those, who's the guy who sings all that? Krishna Das, who sings all those amazing Sanskrit mantras. Those kind of affirmations are, I want to say, spiritually self-evident. Because when you make them and you feel the power of something coming to you, like the presence of spirit or the presence of consciousness, or you just feel that wonderful buzz, or you're on a psychedelic high, or whatever it is, those are self-evident affirmations as well, I believe. Other people may believe the other thing, but if you are highly spiritual and you make those affirmations and you feel the resonance, you get your spine tingling or whatever it is, that's some sort of self-evident thing too. The harder ones are the ones where like, I am wealthy, right?
Yeah.
Where you try to cross the two.
Because they're like, yeah, it's very logical at the same time. Wealth, okay, I know exactly what that is, basically. But then it's something that it's like we all know money has nothing to do with actual physical money. It's all to do with our own inner world and how we have associated money with different things, fears, insecurities, whatever it is, right? So we're trying to reprogram some deep subconscious beliefs, limiting beliefs, but then at the same time understand what the affirmation is, quite logically speaking, but it's also very metaphysical in the sense, right, that you're trying to reprogramam your subconscious. And it's like, how do you do that? Can you measure that? How is that really happening? So that those are the ones that get certainly they're helpful, but they are the harder ones to navigate. When you're saying like the ones that are purely metaphysical, like ancient Sanskrit, for example, Well, there's also like the way those languages were written back then. I mean, it's just a whole different way of writing in language in the sense that those sounds have meaning. The sounds
Yeah,
themselves
just the
were
sound of the syllable.
like Om Mane Padme Hum, like all of those different syllables have extreme meaning to them, not only in the definition of them, but the sounds. I forget the specifics of how Sanskrit was like came together as a language, but I know they sourced like deep frequency things. I don't know, like specific frequencies and sounds that occur within nature and the universe, and basically created a language out of those sounds. So it's far more than just a random language. These sounds carry almost like cosmic, universal nature meaning into them, and I
Yeah.
think that's partly why they somehow make sense to our subconscious, perhaps when we're chanting them, and open-minded and open-hearted to what they could mean. It's interesting.
I'd suggest that that's probably part of their self-evident truth. And we don't have any ancient Sanskrit people around to ask right now, but if there's a deep sound like Om, everybody knows Om, right? So Om has this universality to it.
Hmm.
And if that's part of your affirmation, Om Mani Padme Hum, or whatever, just chanting the
Or
Om by
just Om.
itself,
Yeah.
that sort of connects you in a way to a resonance that is universal. And what you get back from that is incredible.
Hmm.
If you've had the privilege of singing Om in some pretty cool places, right? And it feeds you. I mean, it lights you up. So it's like a self-evident thing. Just singing Om is a self-evident affirmation of something. Now,
Good
it's an
point.
affirmation of different things for lots of people, right? Because we all resonate differently for Om or have different ideas about it. And there's a lot of people who don't resonate for that at all. But you could sing the doxology, for example, in Christian churches, and that'd have great resonance for Christians.
Mm.
It's like the sung version of the belief of the creed.
Interesting.
And that would have great resonance for Christians, right? Which is totally cool. So whatever your flavor is, the words do that, and they get into you in a way that's part of who you are. And it's probably easier to agree that the spiritual kind of affirmations have that self-evident truth, because you've got the poor schmo who's been, I am wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy. But 20 years later, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy. You're still waiting to see $1, right?
Yeah.
And that too is an affirmation, but it's got a problem. So I think the way to approach this is to stay with the musical side of it, rather than trying to unpack why 20 years of saying I am wealthy doesn't, ring the register in your bank account.
Mm.
So maybe we'll get around to that. But let's take it to the musical level and marry affirmations and music and just see where we go with that. Because I know that you do this sort of for a living, man. This is so cool, people. I mean, Chris is going to talk now about singing affirmations, and you are going to be blown away.
Bill's my hype man, by the way, if you didn't know.
It's truly. I mean, have you ever sung your affirmation other than chanting? I mean, we're actually talking singing, right?
Yeah. Like a
So
pop
take it away.
song.
I mean, tell us how this works, because this is fascinating to me.
It's so cool. I mean, because it came from many genuine experiences of going through different, emotional journeys and needing to say some things that just reassured me. And me being a musician and me having the piano as my main form of expression, and I've been using it since I was 6 years old to just pour my emotions into this thing when I don't know how to voice them and I don't know what's really going on. I can always turn to music to just allow me to feel whatever the heck I need to feel. So I was having these moments where I'd be just playing, I'd be finding like a nice little chord progression, but then whatever I was going through at that particular time, I would have like a phrase kind of start to repeat in my head, and one of the first ones that came to me was like an affirmation to myself, and also at the same time an affirmation to some of my friends who I knew were going through similar things at that time. And the line was, I'm not giving up on you. And that's it. I'm not giving up on you. I'm not giving up on you. I'm not giving up on you. And I kind of turned it into this little piano pop song, basically, in terms of how it sounds and how it is sung. But the purpose of it itself was essentially just like all these ancient songs, which was an idea being conveyed and sung repeatedly. And the whole reason I also wrote this was so that when I'm doing any of my sound healing journey like sessions with clients, or when I'm doing performances for that matter, I love doing sing-alongs with them, so that getting people to sing these affirmations with me, and then you get everyone in the audience, like we are talking about at the beginning of the episode. You get that power of people, multiple people now chanting or singing the same affirmation. It's now, having experienced that, it's made me just want to keep writing more affirmations because it's so freaking powerful. And I remember the first couple times I had people singing these affirmations, like "I'm not giving up on you" as an example. I started one. I usually close off a lot of. I also do some breath work events with a couple of collaborators, and I was doing an event where at the end, my co-facilitator turns to me and he's like, "Hey, we got to play some affirmations to really get people amped up at the end here." So we knew what people were kind of working through on that day, and we sang. We started off singing "I'm not giving up on you," and almost within the first 5 seconds of that, I saw like two people in the audience immediately burst out crying. Like it was just exactly what they needed to hear in that moment. And I just felt that that shock wave of like, wow, those words have some serious power to them. And I know there's even more power behind it because there's melody, there's harmony, and we're all singing those things together. So words, very powerful, people, but when you combine them with melody and music and harmony and well, the melody and harmony combine together to create music, and then you have it sung together by a collective of people. Yeah, wow, from personal experience, it's powerful as heck. And like I just want to keep doing more and more and more of it. It's really amazing. So that's been my experience with it so far. It's been really transformative for people.
Anybody ever been to a call and response in church?
Well, I
Have you
mean,
ever had that
I know
happen?
I haven't, but I've done many call and responses.
Yeah. It's
And
like right in the line, man.
right?
It's totally right in the line. I'm thinking of my first experience ever with like a large Christian mega church Easter Sunday kind of thing. I mean, it was, I don't know, it was at some fairgrounds, but there was a call and response. And I don't know, it was 15 or 16 or something. And I'm like, what the heck? What is going on here? I mean, people were ecstatic. And I was the guy who was like, why don't I fit in? Right? I totally didn't get it until I went to a black church.
Mm.
And then I got it. And the time span between those two events was 35 years. I mean, it took that long.
Wow.
On my honeymoon, we went to a black Harlem gospel Sunday. And we were there for an hour and a half, and they were just getting started. And there was every kind of thing happening. There was call and response. I mean, talk about affirmations. Nobody left that church that day unhappy, man. It was beautiful. And what an experience, you know, and the preacher hadn't even arrived yet by the time we had to leave. We had to go somewhere else. So they gave us 90 minutes and then we went off to, I don't know, gospel brunch or something like that. But in a way, it seems to me that every single song is an affirmation.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever the song, it's I'm not giving up on you. It's think that beautiful chain gang scene from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Where one guy sings, they're all just beating rocks with hammers, and one guy sings the lead and everybody responds. Or if you're drilling a military platoon, everybody knows the call for the marching calls. Everybody else sings. They repeat, right?
Yeah. There's fisherman songs too,
Oh
right? I
my
mean,
gosh.
they permeate throughout all culture.
I mean, this is something that is so fundamental to human beings, to who we are, to sing our affirmations, even if we don't really know the language. It's kind of like it doesn't matter. You can just show up and respond, and you're in it, and that's enough.
And
Is that crazy?
It's so cool because having grown up not religious, and then through the scientific, let's call it dogma, or just the way that science typically looks at religion, it's very, very looking down on religion.
Yeah.
And for me, that was my viewpoint for a long time until I had my own spiritual awakening, and then realized that there's so many good and interesting and important aspects to all religions that are at least worth taking note of, with a grain of salt, of course, but certainly can't throw it all out either. And I've just been laughing over the last year or two with my journey with my music healing, and I'm finding myself continually brushing up against exactly like what you're saying, like, oh, so essentially all I'm doing is recreating like a gospel church in a sense, scenario, right? Or all I'm doing is recreating,
You
what
heard it
a lot
here,
of,
people.
right? Like what I'm recreating, like what you would experience at Indian temple, for example.
Sure, right.
Singing the exact same things, but maybe in Hindi, maybe in Sanskrit, maybe in Tamil, whatever. And this can go till, I'm sure this is the same in Chinese culture and all these. I mean, definitely in a
Indigenous
lot of
cultures,
many
just,
indigenous
oh,
cultures, right? African country, different tribes, of course, in Africa. I mean, this is just like, this is worldwide. This is a human thing. This goes back to as far back as we have ever existed, right? This is
right.
probably some of the first types of music we ever created were affirmations. Why wouldn't they be? It's
Yeah.
functional. It's fun. There's so many aspects to it. It's not just entertainment. I think we've only recently gotten to a point with music where it's become diluted and only entertainment. I know back in much more ancient history, and it seems like through most of human history, music has had so much more purpose to it. Like you
Yeah.
said, you can't leave a gospel church in a negative state, really. And there's nothing wrong with being in a negative state, but like honestly, you get into those sing-alongs, I'm like, you are so uplifted, so euphoric. Like, good luck not having a great day after that.
Exactly.
It's powerful stuff.
It's dangerously powerful,
Yeah.
to be honest. I'm thinking about all the sing-alongs where I went to just a concert and people spontaneously started to sing, and I think about different artists, and we went to hear Tom Misch, who's we happen to like this guy, and then the next day there was a sort of an emo show at the same theater, and we had friends that went to that, and they were totally into it. And say their response to that show was the same as our response to Tom Misch, and the two kinds of music were completely different, just completely different, but the result was the same.
Mm.
Like, people left feeling good, like they'd had something happen, right? And I don't know what the words were. I didn't even know the words I was singing. I mean, I do because I can remember the lyrics, whatever. But when you're in it, it's just like you're there, and everything just presents, and you've got it all. It's just like you're there. So, two totally different kinds of music, most likely two dissimilar affirmations, but affirmations nonetheless. So, I guess my question is it the thing you're affirming that's important, or the fact that you're affirming it at all?
Man, I
Does that
mean,
make
like,
sense?
yeah, it does. It's like, I think they're both right. It's which is we're kind of getting to like the paradoxical nature of life and the universe, and
Yeah,
what
exactly,
is,
right?
all of these things, right? It's just
Yep.
that's kind of the biggest. That's the whole point of this podcast. But
It's consciousness.
but
Yeah.
it's consciousness, right? I mean, yes, they're both important. Of course, it's the intention behind the affirmation itself, which is not there's no connection to the actual words. We're talking the intention behind that, and we know through many scientific studies, like the famous, I don't know, what was it, 15, 20 monks that came to Washington, D.C. and meditated for a week. And statistically, you have a massive plummet in crime statistics in that week. You cannot say that that's a complete random accident, especially when you look at the whole rest of the year. That week was a complete isolated freak kind of crazy phenomenon. But it was obviously because these monks, who are powerful people, came in with an intention
Yeah.
and meditated on that intention. I'm sure they were using forms of chants as well during that meditation.
Yeah. Whatever works.
Probably. Yeah, whatever works, right? So we know, scientifically speaking, that intention is very, very powerful, especially when we get into quantum mechanics. It literally, the observer is the one who creates your own literal reality that you see in front of you and experience. So yeah, that's important, and of course the words are important. Words hold so much power themselves, as we said. Just the sound of Sanskrit is powerful, let alone the meaning. And it's the same with the words. Like, I'm not giving up on you. I talked to the one woman who I remember in like the front row, just bawling her eyes out the second I started singing that. And afterwards, I was talking to her. She's like, honestly, I love the melody. I love the song that you wrote, but honestly, it was the words. Like, those words were exactly what I needed to hear right then and there in that moment. And so that shows you, like, I could have sang another affirmation, and we sang a couple others, but that one in particular was the one that made her cry
Yeah.
because that's what she needed to hear. So words are important, and of course, the intention behind it is important.
Yeah. I choose words pretty carefully when I'm going to put them to music. If I'm doing that, if it's up to me, because music opens us up for that full
Mm.
experience. I mean, without your music, you could have said the same words and it may not have had the depth of release for your audience member that it did when the music was in place.
It's so emotional, right? Like music is so emotional. So the way I'm definitely singing it, and that affirmation will be up on Spotify soon. It's an easy one I got to record, put up there. These affirmations are so simple for me on a recording side of things. Briefly, like it's so much easier to just throw these together, and I need to do that because the value far outside of this being like, oh, I'm gonna release my music and like download it and share it and like come to my shows. It's like, no, it's not for that at all. This isn't not to promote me. This is really because these words are very needed. So I want to put that out there. So those of you listening, maybe by the time you're listening to this, check out my Spotify. You can hear this affirmation. But regardless of what I'm doing, there's so many out there that you can hop on YouTube or Spotify and just search for different affirmations, type in the type of affirmation you might want to hear, see what comes up, because when you put it to music, yeah, it opens you up because music opens you up. Music opens up your heart, it opens up your emotional body basically to then receive these new ideas, and that's deep subconscious programming that can happen there too, especially when in my situation I've also tuned my music and instruments to
Mhm.
432 hertz. So now we have a very more harmonious frequency that's also resonating with all the cells in your body in a more harmonious way. So we've got a whole layer of different things going together. But man, yeah, music, as you know, Bill, with literally prescribing music to your clients to help them, it's like this is powerful stuff. When you add music, it's like you're making a concoction, right? You'll add a dash of music, boom, now we have a superfood. We have a super smoothie here.
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah. No, I love you say that because a lot of the time, we had the mind over matter people for a while back in the day, right? And that was like, repeat the same thing over and over, and I am not sick, I am not sick, I am not sick. Well, we fixed that one because you can't affirm something that you're not without making it worse. So,
Yeah.
just a quick word about that. We want to stay positive with our affirmations, not negative. Like, I am not afraid is not a great affirmation, but I am courageous is a great affirmation.
Exactly. Good
Right.
point.
So you're gonna. It's more of a directional thing, right? If you say I'm not afraid, you're pointing yourself toward fear, the fear that you're not afraid of, which is not a great thing. But being
No.
courageous anyway. So enough of that. But adding the music to the repetition. Um, I think that this is why Sanskrit is the most powerful spiritual language we know, because right away it's musical. You've got your words and your music, and they're linked together. But you can do this with English too. I mean, yeah, it's a sort of a lousy language, and it doesn't sound like anything very nice, but ultimately you can put it to music and it'll work, as you've just demonstrated, Chris. So it doesn't matter what language you're using. Perhaps the more elevated ones, like if putting poetry to music is always more interesting to me than setting poetry to music is always more interesting than setting prose. Although, it can be done, whatever. But the metaphorical nature of language and the shades of meaning and the layers of meaning in it are really important in this work. Like saying I am wealthy. Well, wealth is a lot of things. It's
Yeah.
contentment and gratitude, and it involves abundance of all of that kind of stuff. And all of that is attractive to the stuff that we need to get along in this world, which is money, right? So um, there's a sense of broadening your acceptance, maybe, in an affirmation that is important to that affirmation. A narrow affirmation is not, I need $25 by 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, that's putting it in a too small a box, because affirmations are much bigger than that. And I keep coming back to wealth because it's one that we all stumble with, including me. It's a tough thing to affirm your success or your abundance, but opening it to music gets it out of your head.
Yep.
And what you were saying that I love so much is because you do feel that in your heart. What does it feel like to have an abundant heart? Isn't that something you'd want to have in your affirmation? Yeah, well, you're going to get it with music.
Yep.
You can be all focused in on, solving some quadratic equation, because you've got a test coming up. But you can bring the heart into that too with music. I know it's weird, but in Japan, they give master's exams with music in the background for this very reason.
Oh yeah.
It opens us up. It connects us holistically to all the information that we've been learning and stuffing into our brains, right? So we get it in the heart as well.
Creates
And the
that
gut.
it creates that brain heart coherence.
Exactly.
We talked about that before too. Our heart has a brain, and we know this once again through science and the neural pathways that exist in the heart, identical to the brain. So the heart thinks as well. So that's what, the reason why they put the music on, usually it's classical music in those test situations, is because it enhances not only your actual brain capacity, which we also know, but you're right, it's music. It's opening up your heart, and your heart not only feels, but it also thinks.
And it has a lot of answers.
It's got more than answers, way more answers than the brain, as I've been realizing recently. I'm like, all these things, I don't want to navigate my life with my brain, which we are really conditioned to. I want to navigate it with my heart and allow the brain to just put all the pieces in place after the fact,
I know you've had this experience. I've had it too. But when you're taking a test and you just feel like you've got the right answer,
right?
Oftentimes that's right, and it's not coming from what you think, it's coming from what you feel. And what you feel is because you've learned it. It's in there. There's something about the way that you've assimilated that information and put it into work that comes back to you as a feeling. And it's not just a thinking. I think I've got it right, I feel I've got it right.
Yeah.
Of course, the best is when you've got it both ways. And then the last component to music is the spiritual one, where we can't measure any of it, but we know that it's connecting us to something. Like the woman who had that beautiful response was suddenly connected to you. It not like as a personal thing, but as a energy magnet, maybe.
Consciousness to consciousness.
Yeah, consciousness to consciousness. And do we need more of that in the world?
Yeah, we do, and that's what I feel like both of our missions are. And I think for those listening too, it's a really great opportunity to start your own journey with these affirmations, and whatever that means, and use another word if you don't like affirmations because of the new age connotation that kind of comes with that. Then find your own word for it. Empowering
find your
lyrics,
prayer, supplication,
whatever it is, whatever gets you going. And start your journey with that. YouTube's a great resource to start, and just like type in positive affirmations, or type in specific affirmations that you're looking for, and see what comes up. Or mantras. You can
or
get
mantras.
if you want to go into that more. When Bill was describing it, I think really accurately, as the more non-physical, the more metaphysical side of the affirmations, which would be mantras, then give those a try. Try typing in, if you're looking for again, this topic of wealth mantras, you'll get some really good ones. Certainly from ancient India, you'll get like Lakshmi and other really cool meditations and mantras, or other, so just start your journey with that, because I think it's so powerful. It's something that you can start doing in your meditations. It's something you can sing to yourself whenever wherever you are throughout the day. And yeah, you can say the affirmations, but I don't know. I think we're both coming from two musicians here on this podcast. I think we both recommend singing them, humming them, add a little bit of melody, and we're talking about this cocktail again, this sort of synthesis where you get the words great, but if you can add in a little music into that, now we're really talking.
There's a shorthand you can use for this, kind of a easy on-ramp. If there's lyrics that you love from a song you love, and they are affirmative in some way, or they are positive, or they give you the kind of feeling that you want, you might find that you have more of these already and you're stuffed inside you than you know about. I grew up in an era where we used to call things just a codependent love song was the spoof. And there were so many of those. I mean, all of the lyrics that were out there were this whiny kind of, those are affirmations too, right? They're beautiful songs, don't get me wrong. But oftentimes, if you're looking for love in all the wrong places to talk about a song, start looking for it in the right places by selecting a better song for your earworm, right? Yeah. And on the other side of that coin, sometimes earworms come along and they're like, oh, why is this thing annoying me? And I find more often than not, if I dig into that just a little bit, that the earworm has got some sort of a message that I need. And sometimes it's transformative, sometimes it's a warning, sometimes it's happy, 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 like Pharrell Williams comes on, right? And then I can't get it out of my head. And those kind of, when they're not foreground consciousness things, but when they're in the background like that, you can make those things foreground and sometimes unpack what's going on, whether that's something that will help you or something you need to offer a defense against. And say, you know what, I'm not interested in yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. I mean, beautiful song, right?
Yeah.
But the rest of that song is not an affirmation that you really want.
No.
You know, if you're interested in finding love and companionship.
Yeah.
You know, and as long as you recognize that, it becomes either a positive affirmation or a beautiful thing that you recognize as a sense of loss. And that too is something we need to allow ourselves, you know, in the case of yesterday. We need to allow ourselves that loss so we're free to be able to make the positive affirmation, happy or whatever the positive affirmation is. So I'm not saying don't listen to things that mess with your brain, but to be aware, you know, of what that powerful thing is doing, the music and the lyrics, what that powerful thing has for you, and whether that's something that you want or not.
It's a really good point. Really good point. Like for those listening, you know, it's just, it is, you want to be mindful of, I won't even say careful, just want to be mindful.
Yeah, just mindful, music mindset, you know?
Yeah, of what you're listening to and the lyrics behind that. And if you want to listen to something with like, yeah, like really, let's say negative or really intense, aggressive lyrics, cool. I mean,
well, we talked about this like last week, right? You needed anger. And there was a song for that.
Yes, and that's when you want to listen to that stuff.
That's when it's necessary. Yeah,
that's when it's necessary. That's when it makes sense, you know. But it's so true. Like you gotta. I've listened back on old music I used to listen to all the time, and I don't want to listen to it as much anymore purely because of that reason. I'm more mindful now of what I'm listening to, and I hear that I'm like, okay, that's fun nostalgia, but that's one song's enough, and I want to go back into some other energy, some other songs that carry a stronger message that I'm needing to hear right now.
Yeah.
And go into that, right? So just being mindful with what you're consuming in every sense, I guess, but also when it comes to music, it makes a difference, makes a huge difference.
One of the most beautiful moments from the documentary that Questlove put together on the Harlem Music Festival is when Nina Simone came out and basically gave a musical push to the civil rights movement. And I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen the film yet, but that is one of the most awesome moments in recent musical history because of the song that she created and the response that came from the audience and all of that. And it was one of these amazing affirmative moments where everybody who was present understood what was going on. And if you watch it now, you'll understand it in context of how that changed things in such an amazing way. And all it took was one courageous woman willing to do exactly what you've been doing, Chris, which is start a call and response around a positive idea that's transformative. And wow, you know, and that's not even the high point in the documentary. You know, there are others, but you know, look, the power to change an entire nation exists in a musical affirmation. And hey, you know, the affirmations are different now than they were 300 years ago when our countries were founded, right?
Sure.
We still sing "God Save the Queen." In America, my country, 'tis of thee, right? But the sentiment about that evolves with time. And even though we may not be like fighting for our voting rights anymore, we're still fighting for some kind of rights. And who knows, maybe it'll be the right to like sing in public. I don't know, whatever the craziest thing is that they're going to happen next.
Yeah, right.
But you watch the evolution of humanity, of civilization through time, and these amazing moments, like starting with monks chanting and then chanting 2 notes at once, and that was, you know, sacrilegious. The people who must have invented Om back in the day, whoa, transformative. You know, all the way up to modern music, and here we've got the ability to record and produce sounds that we can't even make on regular instruments. You know,
it's incredible,
that are amazingly transformative, like that incredible surround sound. It's like a bass drum hit that you can't hear, but you can feel,
Hmm.
that creates that feeling of anxiety that's so amazing that you need in all of the sci-fi movies, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Or what were we talking? Oh, this came up. Joshua Bell has recorded everything that his violin can play and all the different articulations. And you can have Joshua Bell's complete library of violin sounds for under $150. When was that ever possible that you could have a Stradivarius at your fingertips, right? Um, what we can do is just beyond amazing anymore. And the power that comes with that, oh my gosh, dude, we're in a great spot for this.
Oh, we are. Yeah, and it's happening. You can see it in the music industry and with
Oh my gosh,
these
yes.
artists that are all getting into these different like psilocybin therapy, albums or just very conscious lyrics that you hear now in a lot of hip hop and rap and other very popular genres. But there's even like in the trap and dubstep scene, which
Yes.
I'm just so into it right now. And there's a thing called what was the other day? My girlfriend turned me on to a subgenre in trap called like, or maybe it was dubstep called something like heaven trap or something like that.
Whoa,
Literally, and it's like euphoric trap music where it's like,
cool.
yeah, exactly. And like, and if there are lyrics in it, it's something like, I love you, or you are infinite, or something,
Yeah, yeah.
on that side of the spectrum. And so that you're hearing, I'm like, oh my God, even in these like random genres are typically, I mean, the lyrics that I would hear in things like dubstep were quite aggressive if there was ever lyrics, and or just weird and bizarre, but didn't really
Yeah.
have much substance to it. And now you're getting what, like Heaven Trap and stuff like that coming out. Like, so this is just a sign of that we're taking this great technology we all have access to now, and I think we used it for a lot of great things, but also I think in a lot of ways we're maybe not didn't abuse it, but we didn't know the fullest extent and power that we really have with this music. And now with this technology, with this new knowledge that's merging with very ancient old knowledge, we're coming into a time where we're like, okay, we've got a really powerful tool called music here, and we're going to use that to uplift humanity, to make significant changes within the individual listener, which has a ripple effect around the whole entire planet. If you don't think that, if for any of those listening, the thing I always say, like, oh, there's so many problems in the world and there's all this crap going on. How on earth can I make a difference? It's like, work on yourself. Do all the things that you want to see change in the world, change them within yourself first. Do the work on yourself. And one of the great tools for all this work that we do is which is going through your traumas and dealing with all your insecurities and all the things that basically bring you pain in your life. That's really what the quote unquote work is. And affirmations are an insanely effective tool to help in that journey. And that's where the beauty of music can come in, to reprogram these deep subconscious stories and limiting beliefs that we have. And it's really cool to see that music is now becoming far more than entertainment. It's really becoming a tool to reprogram and reshape your reality.
Yeah, really. So it resculpt your being,
Yeah, no,
right?
no small feat.
No small feat. Everybody's a size 13 now. Sorry. It must be late. There's not enough time for bad humor.
There's
There's
always time, Bill.
that wonderful feeling that you have when you're in music with other people, that sense of connection. I suspect, and there's no evidence for this, but I suspect that if we had no music and all we had was silent affirmation, that we'd all be sitting around like the Quakers. They do their entire church services sitting still, right, and quiet.
Oh,
But we'd all
cool.
be sitting there like that, just mind melding and enjoying the community that comes from having shared affirmations.
Hmm.
I have a feeling that that's what we're equipped for. They talk about mirror neurons, all that kind of cool scientific stuff. But I think it's bigger than that, and that there is a connectedness that can happen even in total silence
Definitely.
when shared affirmations are right up there and present.
That's powerful. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. I know that with my heart, certainly. And there probably are some scientific studies that can confirm that because there's a lot more out there now. But you're right, because we're all connected on a consciousness level, which is nonverbal. That's where ideas like telepathy and stuff like that come from. And I believe like our brains are like radio transmitters and receivers.
Hmm.
And so there's very much a collective kind of communication going on in those church, like that Quaker church setting that you'd
Yeah,
say, like
yeah.
all kind of sitting in silent prayer in a sense. And yeah, and then, but whatever that affirmation is, if everyone's kind of thinking it, it's still going to have very different but similar, because it is a different way of doing it. But I think the results will be extremely similar. Yeah, to singing
Imagine
it.
the whole world being in Zen meditation or something together. And who cares how deep the meditation is, but just that. I have never really felt that in community, but I've felt it in solitude with nature, which is pretty amazing. Climb to the top of a giant mountain, right? You
Yeah.
just look around and you can't help but feel there's something going on, and that you're this tiny little speck in the middle of all of that.
Yeah. An organism within an organism, on an organism,
On an organism.
inside a massive organism.
Yes.
Everything's very much alive, that's for sure.
Yeah, and connected in that way. So
Yeah.
hey, music is a great tool for getting us there. I'm overwhelmed sometimes with a feeling of responsibility for it, but then also with a feeling of freedom to be able to participate in this, and offer sound into the giant symphony that's all of us, all doing what we do together somehow.
I love that. So, I mean, for those listening, we were talking just before we recorded this about sort of our different ways that we navigate this world of music and sound healing. And maybe, Bill, why don't you just let the audience know how they can get a hold of you, and also how we have it in the show notes, I know, but I think it's important for those listening to, if you guys want to connect with us. Bill's got his real area of genius. We're both musicians, but he's got his area of genius with how to use music, and I've got mine. So why don't you tell everybody what you're doing right now?
Oh, Chris, you were phenomenal about this because you said prescribing music. And yeah, I think that's true. So my job is basically to be an educator. If people want to use music more effectively, I can help. And the operative word is use. So bringing music out of the background and up into the foreground where there's a purpose for it. Singing affirmations is a great purpose for music, right? Unpacking the music that's in your heart and learning, first of all, what it reveals about you, and also what's important about that, why that's there, why you resonate for those things. Choosing new music for new purposes. This is phenomenal work, and it's fun to do with individuals. It's also fun to do with teams. So creating music around a team purpose, or selecting individual music that resonates for each team member that gets them to that purpose, is a really effective way of holistically changing the game.
Yep.
Right? So it's like, how can you run 1,000,000 miles if the music that you're listening to makes your feet feel like lead?
Oh my God, right? Good point.
Right? And that's a very common thing for teams who want to do better, to figure out how to do that. And there are obviously, tools in the trade, but music is one of those self-evident things that everybody can resonate for and doesn't require to learn anything. It just requires a little bit more mindfulness to bring that music into connection with the opportunity. So that's what Music Care does. That's what I do. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
You
I
say that to a
love it.
business person, they're like, "Huh? What? What do you mean? I don't know. Where's the bottom line?" But it's really bigger than that.
But it's just the same as if you connect with a coach or a therapist of some kind, and you ask them for, what is your advice on how I should go about A, B, C, and D, and they give you either a list of supplements you can get, or different tools that you can use, mental different tools that you can use to help yourself through. I remember when I was going through my therapy sessions for PTSD, and then they gave me a whole bunch of different,
Yeah.
hugging yourself techniques, and the sort of cognitive response techniques that where you just reprogram your mind to think something different when you hear loud sounds that trigger your PTSD or something.
Yeah.
Is no different. What Bill's doing is, when he prescribes music, is it's just using that music, as we've said, as a tool, but to have someone that also can guide you through that, and to also help with like, why do I need this, or why would that be important, or I don't really know where to start on that. I also had another idea that popped into my head as you were saying this, Bill, where I'm like, I think It'd be really helpful and useful for people that are wanting to go through a very profound psychedelic experience. I have lots of friends right now who are just getting into the area of psychedelics because now it's being, studied again legally finally, and the results are astounding for people's health and their growth spiritually and
Yeah,
physically. And so, for those who I know are planning a psychedelic journey on whatever psychedelic, it would be great to talk to Bill beforehand so that you can put together a really curated playlist of music for that experience that would really help and improve and expand that journey for something even more profound, right?
I
So that
agree.
might be
Yeah,
another cool thing too.
I like to have because music is a laboratory. I like to have things set up in advance, so I've got tools in place before I encounter something. And trauma is a favorite one, so I know I'm going to encounter trauma, that we all do. So having the tools ready to be able to meet that trauma as an intervention is a really important thing. And then to nurture the healing later on, which might be completely different music as you recover from that and integrate it back into your life and digest the
Great point.
trauma and release the power. And that's
Mm.
true with psychedelics too. So having that playlist that you need to go through it and something that will mind you later as you process and digest the experiences and the insights that came during the psychedelic journey itself. Music can be very helpful in integrating those things later on.
I'd say essential, to be honest, and especially with psychedelics, it's opening you up so much more to these frequencies. And
Yeah.
music is, and this is literally words from Johns Hopkins Medical School as well, talking about music being essential part of the psilocybin therapy treatments that they're doing right now that have astounding results already just in their kind of preliminary studies. And so I would say it's really important if you're considering a psychedelic journey to, yeah, to really source the music for the journey. And as Bill said, man, the integration process just as important, if not maybe even more important than the actual journey. And having music to support you through that, because it can get, it's beautiful, but it can, like anything in life, it can be challenging at points. And to have some extra tools in your tool chest, being music especially, because music is so powerful with psychedelics, man, like that's pretty powerful, pretty helpful. So
Other than if your purpose is sitting in silence, it's probably not a time where music can help, but just about everything else. And the fun part of my job is all the purposes that people come up with. Well, how can I use music here? And once you learn how to do that, a whole new world opens up. Then you can literally on your own choose libraries of music for your own purposes that will change everything for you for good.
incredible. I love it. Well, that's great. And for those listening with my side of the spectrum on the musical healing side
Oh
of
my gosh,
things and expansion,
you've got like 3 different product lines going now, right now, right?
sort of, yeah. I mean, the first major thing I'm focusing on are my one-on-one and group sessions that I do, basically a sound and music healing session. And
Yeah.
I use healing because it lets people kind of have a sense of what this is going to be, but it can also it can be for expansion. It doesn't have to just be for your trauma or your insecurities. It can be to improve or expand aspects of yourself and your life. So it's really like we've been saying for so many episodes here, music is it literally can be used for anything, right?
Yep.
Healing, yeah, but also expansion. So I do 60-minute, 90-minute sessions online or in person here in Vancouver. And but yeah, I just take you on a journey, incorporating a little bit of breath work, a little bit of body scan, like a yoga nidra type of body scan, and lead you through a whole journey. And of course, we've been talking about today, adding in some affirmations. And I sprinkle in the affirmations usually 3/4 of the way through because you're in a pretty deep state of parasympathetic state, certainly. So your subconscious is very ready to receive new ideas and new programs, new programming. And so if you want to reprogram, that's one of the main things I'm doing in these journeys is kind of reprogramming whatever it is that you are coming into that session wanting to shift and change or expand for that matter. So that's kind of the main thing. And I'm also doing some breathwork collaborations that are going to be available to be purchased as well, which will be fun. And honestly, just doing different types of events and different types of compositions. People can check out my YouTube channel if they want to get a free look at all of the. I've done a lot of binaural beat compositions, binaural beats. There's a couple of episodes in our couple of the first episodes we ever did here on this podcast talk a lot about binaural beats, and really all that's doing is shifting your brain's state of consciousness to deeper states. Like we've got theta as in delta and alpha, and these different states of consciousness that we have when we're highly concentrated or when we're in a deep sleep. So these are songs that you guys can access anytime you want for free on my YouTube channel. But the real main thing I'm focusing on right now are these sound and music healing sessions, because they are really profound. Like that moment I said to you about the affirmation I sung, and this woman just started bawling immediately.
Yeah.
I'm seeing similar things with these sound and music healing journeys where, I'm using 432 hertz tuned instruments, I'm using binaural beats, nature sounds, solfeggio healing frequencies, and sometimes other healing frequencies like our favorite 40 hertz. I just did
40
a
hertz.
session.
Yep.
I just did a session last week with specifically using 40 hertz, and she loved it. Just blasted her into the cosmos, and she had like the deepest sleep. She was about 20 minutes and I could hear her snoring, and she came back a couple times, back into snoring, came back back into snoring. So it just knocks you right out. Very restorative, and it's so fun. It's just an evolving thing. There's not a lot of other people out there doing certainly this exact way of things. Actually, I don't think there's anybody doing it like this. Just like there's no one really prescribing music like you are, Bill. So we're in an era where, and this, for those of you listening, we're not the only ones doing these really unique kind of hybridized offerings. There's a lot of that going on right now where people are doing really, really amazing versions of something that we might consider a traditional sound healing or a traditional breath work, but they're morphing it into these beautiful hybrid things, sessions, events, whatever it is. And so we're living in really exciting times, despite what the mainstream media might want you to think, that we're absolutely effed. Where I think we're in really exciting times. I think we're seeing examples of just how consciousness is really expanding, and the things that people can now have access to, like the stuff that we're offering, and all these other amazing people are offering. It's a sign of new things to come. We're building like a whole new system of health and wellness, and new systems all around for that matter. So
Yes.
I think there's a lot to be pretty hopeful for.
Yeah, it's a happy time. I'm blown away by just the way that things pull. And this isn't really so much of an affirmation, but you've had that experience where you know that there's something out there that's your destiny. You're not clear on exactly what it is, but it starts to pull. And as it pulls, some things fall away and other things line up and get stronger. And pretty soon you realize that everything that you're doing is leading you in that direction. And then, of course, the direction changes and something new shows up and everything realigns around that. And it's like this ongoing thing. But I feel that pull, man. I really do, toward whatever it is. Yeah, we're all doing our bit here in whatever our gifts happen to be, to offer that sense of, there's goodness.
Oh yeah.
It's not the tragedy that you want. If you ever want to do something for fun, I've done this a couple of times on a challenge. Somebody said, Bill, if you're ever really discouraged, then pull up the news, pull up a story on your computer or something, and then improvise and sing it.
That's cool.
So just read the words as you improvise, and the contrast between the kind of music that comes out often and the words that are on the page, they're usually tragic, is hilarious to me, and it just reframes everything. So try this at home if you can improvise, or even if you can't, just sing. Read the news, like sing the news instead of reading it out loud.
Literally, for those listening, you do not need to be a musician to do this.
No way,
today's
no.
top story is that it's gonna be rainy or whatever.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. Just put some fun, silly melody to it and just go for it.
In this public sing-along that I do every month, I forget what the song was, but there was an open scat in the middle of it. And it was a white dude. What is this? Oh, it was Casey Abrams. I don't know if you guys know Casey Abrams, but he's out there, American Idol kind of winner person, but he plays the bass and sings, plays everything and sings. But he opened up his song, Simple Life, to scat. And everybody was just standing around. I'm like, oh, scat. So everybody just spontaneously started to scat. It was the most amazing experience I've ever had.
For those listening too, scat's like a jazz thing where you go scat ba bap doo ba doo.
Yeah, it's nonsense syllables, and you just pick a melody and go for it. And so anybody can sing. If you're listening to this right now, you can sing, whoever you are. I mean, I've heard people that can't hear sing pretty well too. So, just let the music flow, man.
Let the music flow.
Let the music flow. And if you need any encouragement, who is it? Is it Kimmel, or who's got the do not play? There's YouTube for this. It's either Fallon or Kimmel. Google it, you'll find it. But this is some of the worst music in the world that got recorded that you can listen to on like Spotify is out there. And if you need encouragement for how well you sing, just listen to some of this stuff and you'll go, I can sing better than that. And you can. Oh man, humor's the gateway to consciousness, right?
Oh, it sure is. And it's one of my absolute favorite coping mechanisms.
We should talk about humorous music someday. Yeah, we're going to get in big trouble if we do.
I think we should do. I think that'll be the next episode because I did some parody music with my uncle a couple of years ago, and it was an absolute blast. And we got Weird Al Yankovic and a lot of great satire humor with music. It's
Weird
great.
Al.
Yeah,
cool stuff.
Comedy and music, two really healing, very expressive modalities combined. I mean, that's powerful.
There you go, stay tuned. I know we're running probably long, but I want to revisit our challenge because this might be a good time for it. Remember the challenge of sing a love song to your significant other. Has anybody done that?
Okay, I'm going to do it.
Let's do it. I don't know by when, but let's say, give us a couple more episodes here. So maybe by episode 30.
Yeah. We'll get back to you guys.
Probably before that. We'll get back to you, but let's do that and then report in after the humor episode, probably.
Okay.
And if you're listening, do that and drop us a note and tell us how it went.
Just sing a love song to your significant other or to somebody who you just love and want to express that love to.
Or to your pet.
Sure. Actually, that'd be greght. Let me know how your cat or dog takes that.
Yeah, video that.
Please do.
Oh man. Okay, we're going out off the rails here now.
All right.
It's been real, Chris. Thank you for this. This is amazing. It's great to get to clarity on affirmation and to open up the kimono a little bit on how that connects with music so beautifully for all of us.
I appreciate that. And it's always great to hear what your perspective is, and love to hear what you guys listening also think about that. So drop us a comment. And check us out if you want to connect with us one-on-one. And otherwise, keep creating your beautiful expressions and sing away and affirm your life anytime you want.
Amen, brother. All together. Thank you for listening in on our conversation and for taking time to show your appreciation with a like, share, or subscribe. Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness is a practice of spontaneity, and we welcome your comments, ideas, and questions. There are ways to connect with us in the show notes, so let us hear from you. Until next time, this is Bill Protzman along with Chris Noble wishing you great musical health. Samara Huchaya.